The three main macronutrients that provide energy to the body are carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Generally, one of the main reasons for chronic diseases is the overconsumption of carbohydrates. It is quite interesting to note that the presence of carbohydrates inhibits the burning of fats for energy. What is also amazing is that if glucose is required, it can be produced by the body from fats and proteins through a process called gluconeogenesis. Carbohydrates are organic compounds found in plant-based foods consisting of sugars, starches, and fiber. They serve as a primary energy source for the body. Carbohydrates are classified into simple and complex carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates are single sugar molecules, and when digested, they are broken down into glucose and fructose, while complex carbohydrates like starches are composed of long chains of glucose units. During digestion, enzymes break down complex carbohydrates into simple sugars and are split again into glucose and fructose. These simple sugars are then absorbed into the bloodstream, where glucose can be used immediately for energy, while fructose is transported to the liver for further metabolization. In the next few slides, let us see how each of them, glucose and fructose, are metabolized by the body. Now let us look at the glucose metabolization, a process by which insulin supplies energy to the cells. As I said before, insulin is a hormone produced by the pancreas that plays a critical role in regulating blood sugar levels and facilitating the uptake of glucose by cells to be used as energy. Let's go through the description of how this happens. So, as soon as one consumes carbohydrates, that could be bread, potatoes, sugary drinks, etc., these carbohydrates are broken down into glucose and fructose. The glucose enters the bloodstream, causing blood glucose levels to rise. Fructose is metabolized to a different pathway and will be discussed a bit later on. So the rise in blood glucose levels signals the beta cells of the pancreas to release insulin into the bloodstream. Every cell in our body has insulin receptors. So insulin travels through the blood and binds itself to insulin receptors on the surface of cells, including muscle cells, fat cells, and liver cells. So when insulin binds itself to the cell's insulin receptors, it triggers a cascade of events inside the cell. And this includes the activation of glucose transporters to the cell membrane. In other words, it sort of opens the door in the cell to uptake the glucose. The glucose transporters facilitate the entry of glucose into the cell by allowing it to pass through the cell membrane. Inside the cell, glucose can be used immediately for energy production. Inside the muscle cell, glucose is primarily used for immediate energy needs and muscle activity. And inside the liver, glucose can be used to produce energy or be converted into glycogen for storage. So let us look at a process by which fructose is metabolized. Fructose is a sugar molecule found in carbohydrates, that is grains, starches, and sugars, also in fruits and vegetables. The metabolization of fructose happens in the liver. So after consuming carbohydrates, as we know, they are broken down into glucose and fructose. We have already discussed the metabolization of glucose. Let us now see how fructose is metabolized. Fructose is transported to the liver via the portal vein. It is a blood vessel that carries blood to the liver. Unlike glucose, which is metabolized in various tissues, fructose is primarily metabolized only in the liver. In the liver, fructose is converted into fatty acids through a process called de novo lipogenesis. These fatty acids are assembled into triglycerides, which are also fat molecules. And then triglycerides are packaged into very low density lipoproteins, in other words VLDL, and released into the bloodstream. Excessive intake of fructose can lead to the accumulation of fat in the liver, a condition known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD. Fructose metabolization increases the production of uric acid, a byproduct of purine metabolism. Elevated uric acid levels can lead to the development of gout. Fatty liver impairs insulin signaling pathways, contributing to insulin resistance. Elevated uric acid levels are also associated with insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. Chronic exposure to high levels of fructose and the resultant inflammation can impair the insulin receptor functions on the liver cells, again leading to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance develops into chronic diseases like gout, fatty liver disease, cardiovascular diseases, etc.